Hello all, Jeff Searcy here. Welcome to my little corner of the World Wide Web. Now, before we get started, I'm going to throw a couple of shameless plugs. One, thanks for hanging out and coming and visiting 4rtv.net. We're going to talk about some great things in the near future, and I hope you're able to come back and check us out often. Also, make sure to visit tackwareusa.com. I want you to go and I want you to take a look at some of the best high-performance apparel and gear on the planet. So again, tackwareusa.com. Go check us out. And if you are in the market for any ultra-performance gear, tactical equipment, anything and everything custom, please get in touch with us and let us know. So now on to what the purpose of this and many other editions of 4R TV and my rantings and ravings. Now, unless you've been just completely disengaged, off the grid, or totally unplugged for the past, 7 years, even more, or you've gotten so fed up with the 24-hour news cycle and all that it has become, unless that's you are aware that there's a whole lot going on around the world, and especially here in the United States, and really as it relates to the ideological differences and how those things are playing out across our political spectrum, across our families, in our communities, all across the board. Never in a time have we had more access to information. I mean, think about this. You're probably watching this video on a cell phone, smartphone, could be on a tablet, could be on a laptop, a desktop, wherever it is. I mean, some of you guys probably even have the iPhone or iWatch, and you could be watching a video on your watch. So never have we had more access to information. But unfortunately, never have we been so uneducated on issues and policies and things. I mean, I truly believe that we have never been more closed off to any idea or perspective that is not ours or what we choose to call ours. And I know that I probably hit on on a topic or hit a hot button, and I'm sure we're going to hit some hot buttons as we go along. And the more that we visit together, the more that you check out the channel here and take a look and a listen, but I'm going to get into all those, as we go along. But here's what I think we got. We've got so much going on in our country. We have so much going on in Washington. We have so much going on around the world. And I'm going to say this a couple of times during this. It doesn't matter to me what your political affiliation, what your political ideology, what your religious beliefs are or they're not. I mean, that is yours. Those are your perspectives and your ideologies and your choice. But I do think as we start to look at what's going on, because we're at a tipping point in our country where we are literally divided right down the middle on how things should go. And it makes perfect sense for us to have an idea what's going on. According to a 2017 Annenberg Public Policy Center survey, and Annenberg is a group out of Pennsylvania, and they do some pretty good work, 26% of the people surveyed could actually name the three branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Now, unfortunately, that's down about 17% from 2011 that could name all three. But here's the deal. 31% of the people who were surveyed could not name any of the three branches. Sometimes when I look at that, and I teach government and economics, and sometimes it just blows my mind that there are so many people in our country that don't have any idea of even the three branches of government. And I bet that if we actually surveyed everybody, every U.S. citizen above the age of 15, to include those who teach government and politics, to include those people that are in politics. If you've been watching, we have some of our elected officials who have trouble with the actual three branches of government, but that's the subject for another time and another show. But I bet if you would survey all those that have actually read the Constitution of the United States, I bet that number would be probably less than 1 in 10. I'm guessing anywhere between 1 to 2% of the people in the United States that have actually read the Constitution of the United States and have some kind of idea what it says. And yet here's what we constantly hear. An overwhelming number of people shouting, actually more like tweeting or posting or reposting or whatever it is, constitutional violations. This law violates the Constitution, or that violates our Constitution, or the actual constitutionality of laws, or Supreme Court decisions, state decisions as it relates to constitutions, and so on. Here's the unfortunate part. There's so many people of those shouting or reposting or retweeting or tweeting or whatever it is, to include political pundits from all sides of the ideological perspective, are not as knowledgeable about the Constitution as they may think. Now listen, I'm not here to bash or to scream about how one side is this and the other side is that. I mean, here's what I don't want to be. I don't want to be a part of that white noise that we hear when we watch CNN or Fox News or whatever news channel or whatever radio show we listen to or don't listen to, or whatever we check out when we look at our Facebook news or Twitter feeds or whatever it is. I don't want to be a part of that white noise. And that's something that I also challenge my students. I asked them, and virtually 100% of the students that I ask, hey, do you want to be relevant? In other words, when you say something, do you want people to actually listen and take what you say seriously? And they all raise their hand, and I think we all do. I think we all have a need and desire for being relevant. Otherwise, we wouldn't have everybody's opinion spouting all over social media and everything else. But here's the deal. If you're spouting what everybody else is saying over and over again, you're just part of the white noise. I mean, really, just part of the white noise. Or what you say becomes more like the oratory output of Charlie Brown's teacher. Now, if you're not sure of the reference or you don't know who Charlie Brown's teacher is, I encourage you to look it up, because it is absolutely spot on with some of the things that we hear in the news media and online today. But as a teacher and really a student of governments and politics and economics, and I'm a businessman, it just saddens me and it hurts my heart how uneducated we are as a citizenry about our government, about our country's foundational document. I mean, you think about it. It's something that has been there, and no country in recorded history has ever resided under the same Constitution longer than the United States of America. And I think that's incredibly impressive. Now, yes, we've had 27 changes to it and amendments to it because they were absolutely necessary to accommodate a changing country. But we have resided under the same document. Now, what saddens me is the apathy by which so many have about actually knowing what it says, or even just about reading it. But boy, I tell you what, we just spout, and why don't we read it? Or there are a lot of reasons why. And I think there are a lot of reasons why people we don't read a lot of things. But here's what we do, though. We take what people say, we watch the news media, we watch politicians, we watch people and what they say. We take that as being truth and as being gospel. But what we don't do is we don't actually look at it for ourselves. Maybe we believe it, and maybe because somebody says, because we're not the authority. Maybe we do so because we want to be a part of the conversation. We want to look like, or we want to give the impression to other people that we know what it means, what the Constitution says, that we're up to speed on things. I don't know. And really, I don't really care. And I mean that in the most respectful way, because at the end of the day, I know what I like. I like to know things for myself. I challenge my students to own their perspective. And I'm going to challenge you to own your perspective too. And owning your perspective means that you're not borrowing somebody else's belief system, that you're actually taking yours. Now, your perspective may be the same as others, but you owning your perspective is incredibly important. Okay, because here's what happens. The first time, if you grab a hold of somebody else's perspective and you adopt that as your own, and that's it, the first time it's challenged, I will tell you that the chances are that you won't be able to defend it. It won't be able to defend because it's not yours. It's borrowed. It's somebody else's. Now, again, and then once that happens, and that is challenged, then what you say becomes irrelevant, and you might even feel irrelevant on your own. Here's what I believe, and I believe this in my heart. I believe we all have incredibly important perspectives and opinions. And I will tell you, if you check Twitter feeds and everything else, everybody has opinions. Unfortunately, too many of our opinions are not actually ours. They're somebody else's, we heard. Here's something that I also share. I share with my sons and with my students all the time. If you own or control the message, you control everything. That is 100% true. The news media knows this. The people who put out the information on the phones and all of our social, they understand that. They control the message. They control the content. They control everything. And we're going to talk more about that in future episodes and future visits with me here on the 4RTV.net YouTube channel. And it's a huge issue today. And I call this issue that we're facing as it relates to media and everything else is our technologically driven society. I mean, everything from an ideological perspective is driven. It's just all driven, and we're doing it. We're reading it. We're listening to it. We're here, and then that's how we believe things that need to be done. But here's another thing that I know: the only way to actually change things is to do things differently. Now, here's one of my challenge to my students, and this is what the main purpose of this video right here, this sharing, this time that we're hanging out together, is the same challenge that I make to my students. I'm going to challenge you, just like I challenged them, to be in that top 2% of all Americans who have actually read the Constitution for themselves, not listened to it, not anything else, but actually read it, and that they have an understanding of what it says. I mean, I would bet that that number is probably even less than 2% of all people in the United States, all Americans, all citizens have actually read one of the greatest documents ever written and understand how it works, understand how our economy works, and understand the absolute interdependence and connectivity between the economy, the government, and us. I mean, that's, and we're going to work on that, and we're going to talk about this as we go along. And I know that you didn't want a civics lesson today, but I promise you we're going to talk about some things, because I listen to radio. I read a lot. I watch newscasts from both sides, and I hear the same stuff. Unfortunately, we lose our foundational perspective by which we're going to filter all of the stuff that we hear through. And unfortunately, we don't have a great filter. And that's one of the things that I have is really on my heart to do, is to just share and for us talk about it. And let's talk about different parts of what's going on in the world, what's going on within our government, what's going on in policies and Supreme Court and things, but not necessarily to do this from one political ideology or another, but looking at it from the basis of our Constitution, because I think that's where everything has to emanate from if we're talking. Otherwise, we get into religious debates and this and that, and unfortunately, too oftentimes, that's where our desire to hear what somebody else has to say goes out the window. Now, before we can move into this mansion of intellectual prowess, okay, we've got to do the grunt work. We got to pour the foundation, right? We got to frame the walls. We got to run the wires. We got to put the plumbing in, if you know what I mean. I mean, we've got to start with the plan, our architectural plan of building the house. And that's what we're going to do today. So again, I said this earlier, and I'm going to keep saying it. I don't care what your political ideology or leaning is. If you're a liberal or conservative, great. Either one. If you're not sure and you're riding the fence, just be careful on that one. Okay. I don't care what your religious views are. If you have religious views, if you don't, it doesn't matter. I don't. If you live in this country, it is your responsibility and duty to understand how it works. It is your responsibility, excuse me, to understand how this thing works and how the short document by which this massive juggernaut of a country resides and operates. You got to know what it says. So I'm challenging you today to be a part of that top 2%, the 2% of the entire country that's actually read the Constitution. Yeah, you can download it on your phone on a PDF, and you can read that on your iPad or whatever it is. Yeah, you can listen to it if you want to from a podcast or whatever it is. But I will tell you, there is something about actually having it in your hand and reading it. Something about that. Something about the tangible part of taking a proactive and purposeful approach to actually reading the document that governs the country in which we live. So here's what I'm going to do. I will send you a free pocket Constitution from my great friends at Freedom Factor, great folks there. And I'm going to send you, all I want you to do, there's an email address, jeff@4rtv.net. I want you to send me your address. And I'm going to send you a pocket Constitution of your very own. And it includes the Declaration of Independence and all 27 amendments. Here's what it's not going to do. I'm not going to mail you things. I'm not going to add your name to some kind of list, because trust me, your name is already on about 1 million different mailing lists, and mine's not going to be one of them. Okay? But I'm encourage you to send me that, and I want you to click on that, and I want because I want to send you a copy of the Constitution. I want to challenge you. I want to see if this thing actually works. I want to see if we actually have people in our country that heard this or come across this that actually will take the challenge and sit down and actually read the Constitution. Now, some of you guys are going to say it's not relevant. I'm not even going to comment on the relevancy of this. I think by just hearing me what I talk about, you know that I believe this is one of the most important things that you could possibly do. Some of you guys are going to say you don't have time, but you got more important things to do. I'm not going to comment on that either. I do believe, though, that this is one of those, there are very few things more important than, okay? This is one of those things. Some of you are going to say that your voice doesn't matter in politics. Here's what I say to that. Your voice is the only one that matters in politics. That's how the framers set it up. For you who don't know, okay, our government is a government of, by, and for the people. It was not created for the government to be controlled. It was created for us to be controlled. And unfortunately, the way that we have allowed that control to go and leave our hands and go into the realms of Washington, D.C. and in our state capitals and things. You know, we control, we as citizens have the power, regardless of your political ideology or beliefs. Now, I could go on, and I know you don't want me to. Maybe you do, and I hope that you do. I mean, you're going to check out 4rtv.net, and you're going to come and you're going to listen a lot of times. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to send me there below somewhere on that is an email address or a hyperlink that says send this. I want you to email me your address. I'm going to put in the mail to you. Only thing that you will receive is a copy of the Constitution. Again, not going to sell your info. I mean, I hate it when I get stuff, and I'm not going to do that because I'm sitting here telling you I'm not going to do this, and unfortunately, I'm a horrible liar. So I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. I will not share it. I won't do anything with it. I'm not going to send you anything other than the Constitution. But I want to challenge as many people as I possibly can to be a part of the overwhelming minority, okay, who have actually read the Constitution and not be a part of the overwhelming majority who spout out the same talking points and same white noise, want, that they hear all day long. Because here's the deal. If you don't know what this says and you're spouting out what other people say, you don't know if the context in which you're stating it, or even if your argument is valid or accurate. All you're doing is just spouting out what other people say. Don't be that person. Don't do that. Now, after you read this and after you get an understanding it, okay, you may say the same things, and that's great, but at least what you're saying now is educated, and you actually can back up your opinion, your perspective, and your position. Now, for those of you who don't want to do this, that's fine. It's your right not to. Your right and your free will not to exercise that is absolutely your right to do it. You're free to do that. But just never forget that freedom that we enjoy in our country does not come without a huge price. Okay, but you have every right not to do this. I hope that you won't. I hope that you will choose to exercise your First Amendment right of free speech, right, and choose to read this. You can exercise it and not read it. That's completely your call. But I want you to do this. Okay. Click on that, send me your address. I will put a copy of the Constitution in the mail to you. I'm going to keep track of the number of people that actually take the challenge. And I want you to be a part of our conversations. I want you to check out 4rtv.net as I talk about a lot of things, not just Constitution stuff, not just government stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of things here. But this is something that really weighs heavy on my heart as we go into the future. We have a presidential election coming up in 2020. We're going to be electing new senators and legislators, both at our state level and our national level. We have Supreme Court decisions that are happening. We have complete division within our country as it relates to ideology and belief systems. And unfortunately, I don't see that coming together, and I don't see that split ever getting closer to where we are truly one nation under God, indivisible, unless we actually are willing to, one, look at things from the same perspective as it relates to our Constitution, and that we're actually willing to open up a dialogue with somebody who has a belief that's not ours. And I'm hoping that you, again, my name is Jeff Searcy. Thanks for hanging out with us, 4rtv.net. Come back often. I look forward to getting your address so I can send you a copy of the Constitution. I look forward to talking through this thing with you. We're going to tackle these things. We got a lot of First Amendment stuff that are working right now in our country. We've got some things that you're not even aware of that impact you every single day, and we're going to talk about here because It is our responsibility as citizens to be informed. And listen, dive into this thing. It's absolutely well worth it. Hey, listen, thanks for your time. I appreciate you hanging out with me because time is the only non-renewable resource that we have. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.